Visitors, if you're a first-time visitor, we have a mug back there, a Heart Church mug, that you can have coffee with, or tea, or soup. Apparently it's a good one for soup. Or hot water. My grandma used to drink hot water. You can drink orange juice in there if you want to. Warm it up though, it'll be weird. Okay, I digress. Hey, we're in a series. We're in a series that I've entitled Roar. And I'm excited about the series. This is week 4. And I want to dive right into the scripture, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about where we're headed. But we're going to start in Luke chapter 17, and it'll be up on the screen. It says this: On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was passing along between Samaria and Galilee, and as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance. Verse 13, and lifted up their voices, saying, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said to them, Go and show yourself to the priests. And as they went, everyone say, as they went. As they went. They were cleansed. Verse 13 is kind of a loaded passage because it speaks to two things. One is it speaks to the Jewish law. The Jewish law stated that if you had leprosy and you thought you were cleansed, you had to go to the priest and he would check you out. And the second thing is it says, as they went. In other words, Jesus didn't heal them. He said, go check out the priest, go show yourself to the priest, and then after that, after they left Jesus, as they were going, they were healed. Verse 15, then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. The author of this, Luke, specifically says it was a loud voice. In verse 16, he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now, this was a Samaritan. You ever seen somebody ugly cry? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like an ugly cry. Well, this was like ugly happy. You know what I'm saying? Like he was losing his mind. Like, Jesus, right? What you did for me is so amazing. And then Luke specifically says, it's interesting. It was a Samaritan. So Jesus told the 10 lepers to observe the Jewish law. But come to find out, one of them isn't a Jew. He's a Samaritan. Now, in our world, that doesn't mean a whole lot, but in their context, it meant a whole lot, and we're going to dig into it because it matters. And Luke specifically highlights the fact that now he was a Samaritan. Verse 17, then Jesus answered, were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Turn to your neighbor and say, where are the 9?
Where are the 9?
Where are the 9?
Thank you, Alex. Was no one found to return and praise God except this foreigner? This outsider? And he said to him, rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well. And I want to highlight that word well for a moment and highlight the fact that when Jesus said to the lepers, you're cleansed, it was the word was specifically you're physically healed, you're physically cleansed, but the word well is a completely different word. It's actually the word sozo, which is a fun word to say. Yeah. Sozo. Like it should be a karate dojo that's named Sojo, you know what I'm saying? But that word is also seen in John chapter 3, verse 17, and it says, for God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be sozo. Yeah. That's that word, sozo, might be saved. That's what the word means. It means salvation. And so this leper was cleansed. He came back to Jesus. He fell on his knees. He ugly cried, just thank you so much, Jesus. And then Jesus said, get up, you're saved. You are healed, you are cleansed, you are redeemed.
All right.
His life was changed. Father God, I thank you for your word today. I thank you for what you want to speak to us and what you've been speaking to us and awakening something in our heart as we endeavor to roar. God, you roared first. When you were on the cross and you said, it is finished. I've accomplished it. It is done. The work that I came to accomplish is complete. but then you've given us a roar. And so, Jesus, we want to step into that. In Jesus' name, amen. I don't know if it's just me, but I hear music. Is there music playing? It's like my soundtrack. Is it the kids? Okay. If that's still playing, just turn it off just in case, because... Okay. We're good. So, as I said, roar is about walking in freedom, walking in victory, walking in confidence, living above the minutia of life. And we realize that in our endeavor to do that, there's giants that try to keep us down here, that try to keep us bound, keep us from living up to God's potential. And we talked about shame and discouragement and restlessness. And so this week specifically, we're going to talk about the roar that broke religion.
All right.
The roar that broke religion. And I'm going to just tell you up front, this is going to be a little less of a teaching and a little bit more storytelling. Sometimes, like, I've got tons of slides and I'm like teaching you stuff, and today I'm just going to share a story and maybe preach a little bit, maybe get all fired up, I don't know. But there is a message today that I really believe is linked to this idea of us walking according to the fullness that God has for us as Christians. And it's linked to the desire of the enemy to bog us down in religion.
All right.
So going back to the story. So there's 10 guys, and they're terminally ill. They have a terminal skin disease. Leprosy is gnarly. You don't want to see anybody with leprosy. It would be gross because body parts are falling off. It is bad. And that's why, and it's highly contagious, so they had to stay far away. And that's why it says they were at a distance when they yelled to Jesus. And again, according to Jewish law. And so it says that they go and then Jesus says, go and show yourself to the priest. And then as they went, they were healed. One comes back. 10 are healed. One comes back to say, thank you. Now, I've read this before, and the message that I always get is the message that seems fairly obvious, and that is, this is a message about being thankful. This is a message about, golly, guys, your life's just been changed. You've just been saved. You've been set free from a gnarly disease. And, you know, these 9 bums don't even bother coming back to say thank you. So let's just move on. Let's learn gratefulness and thankfulness. Let's live a thankful life. And like, there's a message in there, but that's not the message for today. And I don't believe that it's the application that Luke was even getting at because of the things that he highlighted specifically in the text. So let's talk about the 9. Jesus speaks to them with a Jewish reference. And this is really important. He says, go show yourself to the priest. Go show yourself to the priest. So this is gross, and this is the reason why I wouldn't want to be a pastor during this time. Because if you have a skin-eating disease and you think you're healed, then you go to the priest and you stand before him completely naked, and he has to search your body, every square inch, to make sure that you are in fact without this skin-eating contagious disease. Very gross. And so this is what Jesus is sending them off to do, because that's what the Torah, the law, says you have to do. So Jesus says, hey, you're going to be healed, and when you realize you're healed, I need you to go to the priest, and I need you to do that whole gross ceremony, because it's required for you to do that, for you to get your life back. So these guys, they're doing what they know they need to do. And so, you know, maybe the Samaritan's like, what are we doing? We're going to show ourselves to what? We're going to take our what off? Like, what are we doing? And, you know, so like the other 9, they get it. They know the Torah. They know what's expected. And so they're like, hey, just trust us. This is like, it's going to be fine. Let's go fulfill the law. So I'm just kind of thinking to myself, let's cut the 9 slack, because I've always given the 9 a really hard time because they didn't even bother coming back from Jesus. Anybody ever read this story and you're like, wow, you guys have fallen from grace. You know what I'm saying? You guys are really far. And yet, they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They're fulfilling the law. So when the priest would investigate them, and in fact, if they were healed, then he would pronounce them clean. Right? There's clean and unclean, and he would pronounce them clean, and then he would say, you have fulfilled the law. This is what they were doing. So imagine they're walking along, and like these guys, they're jacked, right? I mean, a flesh-eating disease, like some of them are missing body parts. Like their face is probably mangled. Who knows how long they've had leprosy in a leprosy colony. And so now they're on their way, and all of a sudden, they start getting healed. So imagine the Samaritan. He's like, guys, like, are you seeing this? Like, your arm just grew back. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's 10 of them, and variety of issues going on, and all of a sudden they all get healed. So the Samaritan's freaking out. He's like, guys, like, we're good. And so the other 9 are like, no, but we have to go show ourselves to the priest, because that's what's required. And he's like, guys, I think we're good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but I'm going to go back because this guy just healed us, and I'm healed. I'm going back. No. You have to understand what's required of the law. And so, this is what we're going to go do. We're very proper. We are going to fulfill the law. See, the 9 were really well-intentioned Jews. They were just trying to do what's right. And they had this Samaritan, this outsider, this guy who doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know the law. He hasn't read the Torah. He's saying like, hey, let's just go back and thank Jesus. And they probably just think he's a bum. Like, hey, you don't get it. You got to fall in line. We need you to get on track. Because what you want to do, this is not working. So the Samaritan's like, guys, like, I love you guys. I mean, it's kind of a brotherhood, you know what I'm saying? I mean, if you can't talk to anybody else, you can't hang out with anybody else, you can't go into the village, all you've got is the dysfunctional few. How many of you know the dysfunctional few become your best friends? Like, you're my guys. You're my family. And so he at some point just goes, guys, I love you, but I got to go with my gut here. And my gut says, this is about this guy. What was his name again? Oh yeah, Jesus. I'm going to go back and thank him. See ya. I mean, imagine this scenario. He leaves the 9, and he's the only guy to go back, and he doesn't even know who Jesus is. He is a foreigner. So, okay, so the 9 are gone, the 1's here, and so he's coming to thank Jesus. He falls down on his knees, he makes this huge deal, and what would you expect Jesus to say? Did you do what I said? Right? Because I said, I need you to go and see a priest. So did you do what I said? Well, no, not really, Jesus. I mean, I was healed and I just didn't feel like it was that big of a deal. And after all, I feel like you're the man, so... And wouldn't you expect Jesus to say, like, listen, I love you, and I appreciate the gratefulness that you're demonstrating, but I need you to follow through. I need you to go get your gang and go get it done and don't come back until it's done. I mean, have you ever told your kids to do anything? And sometimes, go with me, sometimes what you told them to do is not as important as them doing it.
Right.
Like if I'm going to die on a hill, most of the time the hill I'm dying on is, I just need you to follow through. I told you to do something. I don't even remember what I told you to do. I just need you to do it. I need you to prove to me right now that you can walk in obedience, because that is an important value in this household. Hello? And so here's Jesus, and here's this guy who totally ignored what Jesus said. I need you to go to the priest. And he's like, no, I didn't really feel like that was a big deal. And so you'd expect Jesus to go like, man, I get it because you're a foreigner, but I really need you to go back to the other faithful few, and I need you to do what I said to do. totally not what happened. And it's so frustrating. So instead, Jesus says, where are the other 9? What? How about doing what you said to do? How about following through with the Torah? I mean, come on, Jesus. You are the most frustrating rabbi ever. Am I supposed to follow you and do what you say or not? Am I supposed to read between the lines? I don't get it.
This is good.
What are we doing here, Jesus? I don't understand. You're celebrating this guy. So Jesus says, so do you think the other 9 are coming back? And he's like, nah, I don't think so. I mean, we kind of had a big falling out. I'm the only one here. They were kind of like into the Torah reference you made. They couldn't get over that one. I don't think they're coming back, Jesus. It's like, okay. Well, you made the right choice. You're not only healed, you're saved. Go and live a new life.
Yeah.
What? I am so confused. So let's pause for a second. Let's look at Luke's gospel, right? So Luke obviously wrote the book of Luke after the resurrection. So he's telling a story about when Jesus lived on the earth, but he's telling it to people who are reading this after the resurrection, which is important because Luke is writing this gospel to primarily Jewish people. And most likely he's writing this story, influenced by the Holy Spirit, to the 9. Now, I get it. We all see ourselves in the 1. Because that's what we always do. We're always the 10%, right? We're the faithful few. I would totally come back, Jesus. When Peter denies Jesus, I would never do that, Jesus, right? When Eve, bit of the apple, like, no way, that would never be me, Jesus. We're always the 10%. Which is awesome and hilarious because 100% of Christians are finding themselves in the 10%, which is impossible. However, that's who we are, so we're the 10%. We're this one guy. And nevertheless, right, so Luke is writing his gospel to the majority, the 9. And he's saying, it's as if you missed the forest through the trees. It's as if you missed the Messiah because you were following all the rules. See, Jesus wasn't disappointed. Jesus wasn't disappointed with the 9 because they were ungrateful. He was sad because while following the rules, they missed the Redeemer. Like this whole story is not about, man, can you be a little more thankful? Because they never came back. It's not like they did their thing and they came back. Like they believed that their encounter with Jesus was complete and now it was time to go fulfill the law. Leaving the Redeemer behind. The roar that broke religion. Now listen, before you get all excited, I don't believe for 1 second that we all find ourselves in the 10%. I believe that we all struggle at some level with this majority thing going on here. I think we relate with the 9 because much of our relationship with God is oriented around if I do good, right? I'm going to be good, I'm going to do good, and I'm going to be faithful. And the result of that is I believe God and me are going to be good. I know He saved me by grace, and I know I'm going to heaven by grace, but in the meantime, I'm going to do good, I'm going to be good, I'm going to be faithful, because I'm pretty sure obedience and faithfulness are huge pinnacle things in the gospel and in Jesus and in the story, and so I'm going to do those things, and when I do those things, God and me are going to be good. So we conclude that our relationship with God, what's important is to do things the right way. There's a right way to do things, and there's a wrong way to do things. And I'm going to do things the right way. So Jesus says to this Samaritan coming back, it took a Torah-taught foreigner to show you guys what's important. So, going back to the story, guys, seriously, we're good. I mean, again, this is his family. He loves these guys. He's witnessing with his own eyes. You guys are physically all being healed. Guys, we're good. And they're like, no, you don't understand. We have to go and fulfill the law. And he's like, listen, you guys, y'all are weird. And I know you say we need to go, present ourselves to a priest, but Jesus seems like a pretty awesome priest. I'm going to go back to him. He's our rabbi, and he just healed us, so I'm going to go back to him. And they're like, no, we have to fulfill the law. And so they went, presented themselves to the priest. Now, we don't see this part of the story, but it's what happened, because it's exactly what Jesus told them to do. So they went, and they presented themselves to the priest. And so they all kind of we're good, we're good. Can you imagine the congratulatory moments that happen? Well done. You did an excellent job. Adherence to the law. Well done, my friend. You going to that Torah study later? Yeah. I mean, they're good. They never came back. They never had an issue. Here's what I'm getting at. Here's the issue. Here's the issue. They went away cleared by the priest, more convinced probably than ever that they were living right. This is what the law does. This is what religion does. If you live right, it feels really good. See, when you follow the law and live right, there is a reward. But it's not what you think. So we live in a world that is so oriented around do good, make the right choices, be good, you're going to get somewhere in life, and even in Christianity and even in religion, do the right things and good things will happen. And listen, that's not a bad idea. This isn't a message saying go do whatever you want and go make bad choices. But that is the pinnacle, and that's where it stops, is do good and you're good. And so that's where these guys landed. Little did they know that when Jesus said, go find a priest, he's the great high priest. So while they were presenting themselves to the local priest, the Samaritan, the foreigner, the guy who knows nothing, is literally weeping at the feet of Jesus, the great high priest who fulfills all of this. This guy lost his mind on Jesus. See, the foreigner hadn't learned the rules yet. The foreigner hadn't had the Christian box created for him yet. He didn't know any of it. All he knew is his life's been transformed. He's got to go thank the person that transformed his life.
That's good.
That's it. That's all he knew. He didn't know any of this stuff. We're going to go present ourselves to who? And why are we going to do that? That doesn't make any sense. Y'all are weird. This guy just healed us. And y'all are doing what? Matthew chapter 18, verse 3. And we're going to kind of land on this. It says this, learn this well. This is Jesus talking. Unless you dramatically change the way of thinking and become teachable and learn about heaven's kingdom realm with wide-eyed wonder of a child, then you'll miss it. The longer I'm a Christian, the more I feel like I have to unlearn some things. Because our world is constantly systematizing everything. And we are teaching one another, whether we want to or not, how this whole thing works. And we are slowly building this box, that this is how you must behave. Have you ever met anybody that just got saved? And they just like don't know anything except they're freaking out. You know what I'm talking about? Like, you remember that when that was up for you? You remember when it's just like, all you know is you were dead lost. There was a dark hole that you were in before, and now you're in that hole anymore. And you realize that it's nothing that you did, and you are just absolutely in love with Jesus.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I love to see those people. I love to meet those people. The people that know nothing. But their worship is freaking awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I remember one guy, when we lived in Olympia, I remember one guy that just got saved. And a couple weeks later, I saw him at like an event, and we were doing communion at this event. And I remember watching him stand in the back. There was this huge crowd, and the lights were down, and everyone was standing, and there was somebody on the stage who was worship, and somebody was leading us in communion. And I remember sitting back there, and I was holding the grape and the cracker. And, you know, at this time, I was a youth pastor and had been in ministry for a long time. And so I'm holding it, you know, and I'm kind of looking around, because that's what pastors do. It's totally irreverent, but I was kind of looking around, you know, when we were doing it. And I'm like, this is awesome, you know, I've done this before. And I'm looking at this guy. And he's like weeping.
Yeah.
He's like, I mean, I'm watching him hold these elements, and he's just freaking out about what he's holding and what he gets to do, and he knows nothing about it. Literally nothing. Like, he couldn't lead you to a scripture that even says why we're doing communion.
Yeah.
And he is losing his mind. And I'm back here going, it's fine. Communion's cool. It's biblical. I'm walking in obedience. Aren't I a good Christian?
Good word. Amen.
I'm forgiven!
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm forgiven! And we see these people going like, you don't understand, like my sin, I was so bad, and I'm forgiven? And before long, we kind of like, yeah, I get it. Like, I understand forgiveness is like basic stuff. Like, that's level 1, bro. Christianity 101, forgiveness. We teach that in 101 class. Sit down, man. It's time for a Bible study. We're going to study the book of Revelation. 7-headed beasts. 7 deadly sins. Learn it. It's important. Teach you some stuff. And before we know it, we've taken the 10% and we've indoctrinated them into the 90%. How to do this. Let me show you how to do this. This Christianity stuff. Because I've been there and I've done some stuff and I know how to do things the right way. Because how many of you know there's a way to do it and then there's a wrong way to do it. And so we need to make sure we disciple people to do this right. Otherwise they're going to get all crazy. In essence, we're saying, quiet down your roar, it's too reckless.
Wow.
Come on.
It's too reckless. It's called religion. Have you ever noticed that religious people are right? They believe they know how things should be done and what you should or shouldn't do in a worship service, or, you know, just... There's so many arguments out there in the Christian world. So many squabbles. They're so stupid. I mean, don't get me wrong. Look, there's some hills to die on. Jesus Christ and Him crucified is a hill to die on. We're going to die on that hill. But there's so much other stuff. But religious people, they always feel like they're right. And I just like, when did we come off believing we're right? I'm not right. I'm wretched. I am broken. I am weak. We should be the last person on the planet that would ever criticize or be judgmental of another human being.
That's good. Amen.
I'm not right. Listen, I don't stand before you and preach because I think that I'm right or I have got it all figured out. I am broken and weak and fragile, and Jesus is the only one that's right.
Yeah.
He's the only one that's good. And I don't know what happened in our Christianity, but somewhere along the line, when we walk with God long enough, it's easy to fit into that category where you feel like, I understand now. I'm good. I'm right. Romans chapter 3, verse 20 and 21 says, "For no one can ever be made right with God by doing what the law commands. But now God has shown us another way to be made right with God." So don't put the next slide up. Can you imagine, like these 9 guys being introduced to this? Jesus has introduced another way. What other way are we talking about? I mean, all we know is doing what's right. Following the law. There's another way. And I want us to just pause for a minute before we dismiss this message as like, oh, we got it, saved by grace. I want to apply this to every area of our walk, every area of our relationship with God, every idea that we have about Christianity. And I want to say to you, there's another way. And it has nothing to do with your behavior to be made right with God. 0. Now listen, I know I preach this stuff a lot, and this is just like the heartbeat of our church. But I just feel like there's so much in our society. There's so much guilt. There's so much shame. There's so much that causes us to drift back to like, okay, God, I understand that you did a lot for me, but there's got to be something that I have to do to fulfill it. And then pretty soon when we start to do those things, we start to fit in like the 90% because we think we got it and we start to feel good about ourselves. And I'm here to tell you that Jesus is the only one that's good. So, moving on. There's another way. We are made right with God by placing our faith in Jesus Christ, and this is true for everyone who believes.
Amen.
Everyone. We are not the one who's good. We are not the one who's right. Jesus is good. And Jesus, He is the one that deserves our wonder and our amazement. It comes from His righteousness and His alone. So this childlike wonder that this Samaritan had, this like, oh my gosh, it was all oriented around what Jesus accomplished, what Jesus did, and it wasn't what He did at all, and it wasn't what He needs to do now. What I love about this is what happens next. And this is where we'll land the plane. What happens next is He becomes the greatest worshiper of all time. Right? Like, His response is fall at the feet of Jesus and completely surrender his life to Jesus because it's been changed. And so I think at the end of the day, you guys, my message is that religion constantly seeks to capture us in this mentality that there's something I gotta do and I gotta get it right. And when I don't get it right, then I feel guilty. And what worship takes place when we finally realize that it's about focusing our attention on what He already did versus what we need to do. What He did instead of what we must do. We have entered into worship. I believe that this message is about worship and not about being thankful. I believe that it's about surrendering your whole life to God as a response of what He did. We need to rediscover our roar of wonder. Every day you wake up, every day I wake up is gift. Every day. breathe in air in our lungs. It's gift. Jesus absolutely paved the way for us to walk in freedom. And listen, I've been saying this, and I'm going to continue to say this, that the response to a life that finally understands He did it all is a life that says, God, how do I follow you? Because that's my desire. My desire is to walk in your goodness, not because I must be proper, and I'm going to teach everybody else to do that. But man, let's be a little bit more reckless with our worship and passionate with the way that we follow Jesus. I think that people should look at us and think we're a little crazy. I mean, I think that every day we wake up, we go, I'm free today.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you saw the news and you watched those people who have just been getting out of prison because like Trump's been pardoning them, which regardless of what you think about the politics, I love watching the guys that are literally like, I had 8 years of my life stolen from me and my family, and now you get to see them on camera, and it's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm breathing free air right now. These are my kids. Have you seen my kids? Like one of the former mayor or whatever. He's like dabbing blood on his chin. I mean, if you saw the interview, it's really funny because he cut himself shaving. But nevertheless, I digress. He's like, these are my kids, and like a couple of times he keeps saying like, these are my kids. Aren't they amazing? Because he hasn't seen them.
Yeah.
But he's living with this like wonder of like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing life. I'm free, and like this is my child, and these are clothes I get to wear because I'm not wearing an inmate suit. Like,
Yeah.
man, this is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, before long, the wonder fades, doesn't it? And the roar of wonder, it fades because we start hanging out with the 9 and we start realizing, yeah, that's a little childish, don't you think? To like be like that all the time? It's a little childish. We need to be a little bit more proper in our expression of our theology. Man, I want to be reckless. I really do. I want like religious people to go, I have no idea what to do with you. You are not in my box, and you need to go over here because it's just, you know what I'm saying? And like I would so much rather err on that side. Wonder, amazement, awe. And listen, like, I may not get it all right all the time. Give me grace. I'm figuring it out. I'm still learning how to follow Jesus. And I want to be saying that when I'm 80. When I've been pastoring this church for a very long time, and when I've read this Bible through and through and through, I still want to be saying, like, I don't know. But like, Jesus saved me, and I am free and healed and redeemed. And like, I don't want to lead people to a place where they are just stuck in religion because it's not life-giving. And those 9, they went away healed but not redeemed.
Yeah.
They didn't experience sozo.
Wow.
All they received was a physical healing. They did what was right and proper, and then they went and lived their life believing all was good. And I'm here to tell you that if you just live your life like that, some good things might happen. You may have some good stuff happening here for your life. And you may use that as justification. It's like, I'm living right and things are good. But I'm telling you, there is a life that takes place that flows from the kingdom of heaven that has nothing to do with your good works and everything to do with what He already did.
Amen. Amen.
Jesus.
Thank you.